2019 Scott Ransom. Had this for a few days. Thank you very much, Dave, for letting me ride your bike. It's been epic. It didn't take me long to get it set up right. I put a spacer in the fork, gave the forks a lower service, make sure everything was right. Fox had all the right amount of fluid and whatever in there. A little bit overpacked with the grease again, but not a big deal. First things first, I've just been doing some filming here and riding it, kind of pushing it to its limits, and I was going to go back up and do a Strava run, just nice clean run, and put a decent time down to kind of start making a leaderboard with these bikes. But this rear shock, it's good now, but after charging, well, as soon as you hit something nice and fast, this rebound damper has, it's almost like the dampers let go momentarily. So it was just like a spring, pogoing around. Now it's back to fine again. It's like once it cools down a bit, it goes back to normal. It's only just happened this last little bit of filming. But other than that, we'll ignore that. It's just a warranty issue with Fox. The tyres, I found the rock that I sliced this tyre open, and it does make sense why I put a hole in it. It's literally a pointy rock, you know, like a piece of shale sticking straight up out of the ground. So Exo Plus tyres, they feel good, heaps of grip. It's pedaling up the hill really well. So I climbed this fire road this morning, today at the start of this session. Now I did the fire road the other day in the heat, and I smashed, I put in a hell of an effort, went as hard as I could, and I did a 5-minute climb on it. On this I went full lockout. It's a little bit of a loose gravel climb. Big fat 29ers, full lockout, no worries. I did it in 4:57, so it climbs really well once you get it into middle. The middle mode's where you're going to do most of your climbing. Open mode climbs not very good at all. All your energy goes into the bob. Once you get it pointed back down, but that bob doesn't seem to hang around that much. You can get on the gas and actually get something out of it. So I'm becoming a fan of the twin lock for sure. It made the climbs quite easy. So it took me 14 minutes to get from the bottom of the track all the way to the top of the track to the guardrail. So, you know, 7 minutes on an e-bike, 14 minutes on one of these, not too bad. You know, I was sweating a bit, but not pushing it hard. Descending performance, we've spoken about spec in the initial, my initial impressions. The wheels, yeah, they didn't feel too bad. Hey, I thought they were going to be a lot flexier, but they didn't really feel too bad. They could be stiffer for sure, but not something I'd complain about too much. The rear hub, definitely, yeah, you want more engagement. If that's upgradable, then great. If it's not, then yeah, they've dropped the ball there. The NX derailleur slaps around a fair bit. So I mentioned that it sounds really loud with the combination of the lack of engagement and that not very good clutch mechanism on the NX. Now what I've also found out is, or what I've also learned, is I took on this axle, it's got a removable lever for the axle, so you can undo and do up the axle. Now I've taken that out and left it in the car today, and it's much quieter, so that was creating a lot of bounce and a lot of feedback as well. So it's actually not too bad with the bounce and the noise now, considering the spec, you know, the NX drivetrain and whatnot. It's actually not too bad. And I had it singing. I've had this thing singing all day. It's reasonably smooth through the rough stuff. It carries reasonable momentum. It's not quite the same momentum as you get on a Trek Slash. That thing had momentum. That thing was ridiculous. But this is up there for sure. So cornering, I really like it. I almost feel like it's neck and neck with the Slash for cornering. It's better than the high tower for cornering. The big high tower, the large high tower that I rode. The medium high tower cornered really well because it was quite a small bike. Now this feels, it doesn't feel like a big bike like most 29ers feel. It's a medium. It's got I believe it's a 12-18 wheelbase. So it's a long wheelbase. It's longer than what I'm used to with most bikes. It's kind of almost a large wheelbase on a medium bike. 64.5 degree head angle. The rear shock, you have to run it at 22 to 23 millimeters sag. Anything less than that, it's choppy and kind of, you don't get as much compliance, so you're not going to be able to send it as hard. 22, 23 millimeters seems like the sweet spot. and you can send it super hard. I don't think I've found the bottom out once, so I haven't bottomed it out today. Yesterday I may have gotten to the bottom, but I never felt like I bottomed out, and it didn't really look like the ring was up, but it wasn't completely up, so I'd have to let the pressure out and see where the actual bottom out of the shock is to find out whether that was bottom out or not. But at that low pressure, that deep sag, it feels supportive, and it almost feels like when you run it firmer, like it's not supportive at first and then it's too supportive. So it's not supportive and then too supportive, whereas you drop it deeper in the sag and it's just heaps supportive the whole way through. Like I said, it does bob, but the cornering's the highlight. The brakes are better than I first said, maybe because I'm getting used to them. I don't feel like they've got any more power, but I'm using them a little bit better, so maybe my fingers are calibrated to how much pressure I can put on at the start and then ease off once they start coming on, because that's what you have to do. You've got to go heaps and then ease them off once the bike starts to slow down, and it's slowing it down. So it's 15.5 kilos, 15.56 as it is, as I weighed it the other day. So it's no lightweight. I started with the Crank Brothers pedals, which I've done a little review on. I'll post that soon. Now I'm on these 1-ups. I've been riding these 1-ups all day today, and I rode them yesterday as well. And these 1-ups are excellent. I'm a fan of these pedals. I rode around on these 1-ups one time briefly not long ago, just in sneakers, and I felt like the center of the pedal floated around, like floated my foot a bit, but today they feel much better. 510s, they feel killer. So I'll touch more on that a little bit later. Cornering, it's stiff, it's a stiff bike. Even though the wheels are a little bit flexy, it almost, maybe it aids the bike, like heaps stiff, heaps flexy makes a good balance, maybe not. I'd have to spend more time on it to really find that out and swap some parts in and out. I'd definitely go shorter cranks. I've got no time for long cranks. Even though this has a lot of clearance, seems like it's a higher bottom bracket, it's still affected by having long cranks, so forget about them. But I'm coming back to it again. The cornering on this thing is excellent. The confidence with the fatter tyres, DHFs, 3Cs, so it's got all the goodness in a bigger tyre, and 29er. So I've always loved the way a 29er front tracks, and that little bit of extra security it gives you when you do get a little bit too far on the edge of grip. But I still would prefer a 27 in the rear, and I don't know if they could make that work. I'm not sure if that'll work, but yeah, this thing corners extremely well. Still an effort to throw it down into a corner, but it gives you exactly what you want. It's nimble, it's playful, it doesn't get stuck on a line like some bikes have. If I want to move and change directions, if I'm mid-corner and I'm darting off to the right of the corner instead of getting the line out of it, I can just give it a little pump on that front wheel, and it'll hook up and it'll change my direction. And like I said in the initial review, that ability to throw the bike around with your hips, to turn it mid-corner with your hips, is excellent, very pronounced. It definitely makes it feel good. So I won't say I've done a backflip on this bike, but I'm definitely much more impressed with it now than I was on the first day, which is the usual story when I demo bikes. If I could only have a demo bike for a day, it's going to take a lot of effort for me to get it to feel as good as it can probably feel. So I don't feel like they're going to get it, they're not going to get the full review. A few days on this, feels great. So not a backflip, but definitely it's winning me over. The twin lock has definitely won me over, even though the spacing and it's just an odd position, like to have your seat post lever. So that's another thing about this seat post, it's still doing it. So it comes up, oh no, that was good. So it's still doing it intermittently, where it comes up to, within 20 mil, and then you got to sit on it and then press it again to get it all the way like that, all the way to the top. I'd like the twin lock to be around a little bit further, so I'm not having to reach under the bar to get it to full lock. But in order for that to be around this way a little bit further, it's going to put the seat post up a little higher out of my thumb reach. So maybe I can bring it around without too much detriment, maybe not, we'll see. The NX drivetrain feels a little bit clunky, a little bit off time. I rode my transition last night as almost like a palate cleanser with the GX drivetrain and 27 wheels and different, different setup, different size bike. And definitely the GX is a fair bit crisper than the NX. NX feels a little vague sometimes dropping into the next gear, even though it's been adjusted and it's pretty well spot on now. Little vague dropping into the next gear. Excellent coming back up. It's flawless coming back up. This integrated chain guide that they've got, I'm not sure if they've got a spacer in between it that shouldn't be there, but it sits, when you're up in this top ring, it rubs on the inside of the guide there. So if you could, I haven't fiddled with it, I haven't had a look at it, but if you could rotate it forward just a touch, just bring it 5mm forward, so the back of this is more so where the chain is still on the cogs, so it's not, the chain hasn't started its deviation off that cog to whatever cog it's going to. That'll eliminate that rub. So not sure whether you can pivot it forward a little bit or not. Something worth looking at. What else? What else is good on this thing? Like I said, the brakes were average. The seat post has been flawless except for that not coming up at the right, the full height. There's no real creaks. Apart from that rattle, now that that rattle's gone, it doesn't make too much noise in the rough stuff. It feels calm, feels composed, and you can definitely maul through the rough stuff in it. At first I thought maybe it's just a downhill bike, just a shuttle bike, just a park bike, just a, I want to run descents all day, not pissing around. But now that I've gotten friendly with this lockout lever, in mid, there's no good descending in mid, unless you're on flowy, flow trails. Mid would actually not be too bad. I accidentally did a half run in mid before, and there's pretty much straight away you notice like, oh, it's a bit choppy underfoot, and you'll pick up on it. So bearable, but not great in mid for descending. Excellent for climbing. It takes all the sting out of the climbs, and you can sit and mash, no worries. The handlebars feel great. I haven't even moved them. I haven't rolled them forward or backwards, so all I did was square them to the fork because they were a little bit out of square. No roll, no messing around. The grips, I took a turd on them at first. I really didn't like them, but after a few days riding with gloves, they're actually good. Yeah, the grips are fine, but they're no good without gloves. If you haven't got gloves and you get any sort of sweat on your palms, it's 2 bars of soap. So with gloves, the grips are fine. Not much more to say. The fork, no real setup. You can't play with the compression or anything. So it's just spacers and rebound and air. So I've got one spacer in there, 75 PSI. Feels excellent. Feels smooth. I could go, 72, 73, and it'd be excellent. Anything over 75, I'd look to take the spacer out so I can get. I think it would hit a wall. If I go any firmer with the spring with that spacer in there, it'd go from supple on the in the very initial part of its stroke to really rough in the deeper hits. So I don't want that. I want it to feel soft all the way through but efficient. So if you're going to up the pressure, you take the spring out. Take the spacer out. So overall, it's definitely impressed me for sure. This isn't the rowdiest track. I don't think it'd be as handy to ride, being such a big bike. Track like Twisted Gum, I think I'd struggle on a track like that on this bike. Saying that, narrower bars I think would eliminate a lot. Maybe it would be alright. I don't know. I'm inconclusive on that on tight tracks. Narrower bars, I think it's good. Yesterday I definitely would have said no for narrower tracks, but today, after pushing it a little harder in the corners and getting used to it, and really giving it some, having a lot of fun on it, it is a nimble bike. So I don't know. I wouldn't be too scared. If you're like, oh, but most of my trails are technical and whatever, it sounds like it's just a plough for the long, fast tracks. I think you'll be alright. I really do think you're right. If you've got long, ploughy, fast, rough tracks, you'll love this bike for sure. You'll absolutely love it. Better spec, shorter cranks, like GX, shorter cranks, better brakes. and eventually when you destroy the wheels, put better wheels on so you can get 32 spoke hubs and wheels on it, because these are 28s, and you'll be singing. That's it. So yeah, gets a good good score from me. Thanks again, Dave. Killer bike.